Steph Curry now has 4 rings. And yes, he should be now in most people's top 10 players of all time. Maybe I will do an episode in the near future giving you my top 10 NBA players of all time. I'm not going to do that right now. Ever since that fateful 2015 year when Steph Curry, to me, was just unleashed by Steve Kerr, they started their dynasty. That season, it became the Steph Curry era. Obviously, Steph and LeBron really, their eras kind of clashed because LeBron, it was his era. He's been going to the finals every year since 2011, since he went to Miami. He goes back to Cleveland. He restructures the roster, and this monster rises up out of the West all of a sudden. Golden State becomes a legitimate threat. LeBron had his kind of battles or rivalries with different teams that he really had to get over the hump against. Not just get over the hump, but like teams that seemed to just have LeBron's number. And the teams that I would always say would really hurt LeBron, that were like LeBron's worst nightmares, were teams that were deep, that could really pass the ball, and that had just good IQ players, and that had shooting. You go back to 2011, people felt like there was, Dallas had no business keeping up with Miami in those finals. But you had Jason Kidd, JJ Barea, Jason Terry, Deshaun Stevenson. Like you had toughness, you had quickness, versatility, IQ, veteran presence. You had shooting. Like Dallas just had all of the kind of pieces and offense and IQ that you needed to beat not just LeBron, but LeBron on a super team. And it was the Spurs, and then the Spurs came. And even with Manu Ginobili looking old, and Tim Duncan being old, and Tony Parker being, and even with Kawhi Leonard, 21 years old, just a baby, just coming up, but the Spurs had the kind of pieces and the kind of system and model that I felt like was the kind of kryptonite to LeBron. Golden State rises up as the number one threat to LeBron James continuing his championship legacy. Steph Curry rises up as the biggest threat to LeBron James. When we look back on this time, this era of NBA history, that's going to be a serious topic to look at. You can't really ignore it. We went from the LeBron era right into the Steph era. Not to mention Steph beat him in the finals. He had KD 2 out of the 3 times, of course. They stopped LeBron from having, he could have 5-6 rings now. The Warriors are the reason why he doesn't. And that's the thing that everyone talks about with Steph Curry. Now he's the face of the league again, having won his 4th ring. So Steph is the face of the league again. It's the fact that he's not, the 7-foot freak. He's not the 6'10" unicorn, most versatile player of all time. He's not that. He's the best shooter ever. And let me just go into this quickly with Steph. I don't know if anyone else has heard this or seen people go into this before, but I have seen media, I've seen people on Twitter, I've seen articles written about this. Don't call Steph Curry just a shooter. He's not just a shooter. I don't know what else to, until someone else gives me a better way to describe it. I don't know what you want me to say. Everyone else says it too. He's the best shooter of all time. That doesn't mean he can't be other things, because he is. He's a great ball handler. He's probably got one of the best handles of all time. But what do we know Steph Curry for? What is his mantra? What's the main way he manufactures his points? What does he take most pride in? What do we know him for? It's shooting. He's got the 3-point record. He's the best shooter of all time. I have seen people imply that it's disrespectful to call him the best shooter of all time. He's not just a shooter. Calling him the best shooter doesn't mean he's just a shooter. It means that he's out of all the people who've ever shot the ball. It just means that he's the best at doing it. So I guess people want, some people are saying he's the best point guard of all time now, or he's top 2 point guards of all time now. Whatever. That's fine. That's fine. He plays the point guard position. We don't look at Steph Curry as a point guard the same way we look at Chris Paul as a point guard. In fact, if you go on YouTube and check out the podcast on YouTube where I do my interviews, Rashad Phillips was my first guest on the podcast. And if you don't know about Rashad Phillips, he is a master talent evaluator. Rashad has his new position manual, position dictionary. He has started a movement of really redefining basketball positions. And if you go to that episode, you'll see us talking about it. But the difference between a Chris Paul and a Steph Curry based on Rashad's position metric is Chris Paul is a point guard, your prototypical point guard. Steph Curry is slotted as what Rashad would call a hybrid guard. Really the key difference to me, and I'm paraphrasing here, your point guard is like your prototypical point guard, gets you like 20 points, 10 assists. Your hybrid guards are the ones who can get you assists, but they're the ones, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I'm summarizing here, but your hybrid guards are like the ones who can basically score the ball more. Dame Lillard, Steph Curry. The main thing Steph Curry has done for the point guard position is ensure that your point guard has to be able to score. Not just shoot, but score. When people talk about Steph Curry changing the game, it on a high level, on a big picture level, it is the fact that he has changed the nature of shooting. He has made people want to shoot more. I firmly believe this. I feel like I've seen and noticed this throughout my life. The best player in the NBA, who is the face of the league, who is all around the world, the face of the NBA, their game, I feel like translates all the way down to 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and middle schoolers and kids that are coming up playing basketball. Not that every kid wants to play like the best player and stuff, but look, where do you think Be Like Mike came from? I want to be like Mike. I was one of those kids growing up in the 90s wanting to be like Mike. I don't know about you guys or other basketball players or hoopers listening or anything, but I mean, when I watched videos of my favorite players all the time. All I wanted to do was play like them. So yeah, that's why it is completely fair to assume that Steph Curry has changed the game. Now, and over the last, 5-6 years, anytime there's a video out there of a kid in the driveway or a kid in an AAU game launching some three in transition or just shooting mad threes or whatever, people credit that to Steph Curry. People say that is a product of the Steph Curry era, of Steph Curry changing the game. And I do believe that Steph has made shooting just as important and popular as dunking and athleticism. He has brought shooting back to the forefront, and I am very grateful for that as someone who was a shooter. We know that he's not just a shooter, but the thing that separates Steph from all the other shooters is what he does off the dribble. Steph does get catch and shoot threes. He does come off screens. He does do the things that your typical generic shooter does do. But what takes him to that next nuclear level, what takes him to best shooter of all time level, what makes him different from Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and Rick Barry and all the other great what he does off the dribble. It's how he gets these crazy three and stuff. It's the off the dribble stuff that takes him to the next level. And of course, his range as well. But as a great shooter with also great handles, with also great IQ and passing ability, Steph made sure that over time, he kept going to the basket. As a shooter, people are always running out at you. You're going to have opportunities to blow by and go to the basket if you want. That's what separates him from a JJ Redick, right? Or Kyle Korver, those other generic shooters, which people think I'm comparing him to when I say he's the best shooter. No, he's far beyond those guys. That's why he's the best. But that's the difference between him and those guys, because JJ Redick wasn't going to the basket. Steph really is an underrated finisher. When you look at some of the finishes and the way he just quickly gets up into the air and makes those decisions, whether it be floater or getting all the way to the basket, that's what makes Steph the ultimate threat. And as the best shooter ever, those are the kind of opportunities that he made sure he sought out, because he created between 2015 and 2017, 2018, he created a culture where people have to face guard him, have to beat up, have to meet him at half court, right? So he's going to be less and less open.